Good afternoon, everybody. For those of you I haven't met yet, my name is Neil Anderson, and I am the Director of External Affairs at the Black Country Chamber of Commerce. And I'm delighted to welcome you here this afternoon on behalf of colleagues at the Chamber. And we're delighted to welcome all of our attendees, speakers and business partners today to the launch of Black Country 2.0 and for the start of a journey which will set the agenda for most of the Chamber's work over the next 12 months and into next year. Black Country 2.0 is the biggest and most ambitious campaign ever run by the Black Country Chamber of Commerce. It will operate across all of our channels, events, policy work, and will be shaped by members and partners as we respond to the significant disruption we have faced in how we live, socialise and do business, following the unique challenges of Brexit, the biggest economic downturn on record, and the lingering long shadow of COVID-19. Over the next 90 minutes, you'll hear from speakers, including Jude Thompson, President of the Chamber and MD of CSCM, who will officially launch the campaign and in a more physical environment and world would have probably cut a ribbon or broken a bottle of champagne over one of our great landmarks. Andy Street, Mayor of the West Midlands Combined Authority, Chamber CEO Corin Crane as he hosts a panel discussion with Black Country 2.0's business partners, Money Corp's Anil Jesse, Black Country International Trade Advisor Heather Crocker, Emma Johnson from Foresters, Richard Lane from EBC Group and Neil Lloyd from FBC Mambi Bowler on these three big challenges and what they've meant for them. This will be followed by a session by the campaign's other partner, the Department of International Trade, with Ian Stevens and Ben Ropey giving an overview of operating in the post-transition period and introduce the opportunities businesses have within the clean growth agenda. Today's session will give you a flavour of the priorities and focus of the work of the Black Country 2.0, which throughout 2021 and 2022 will consider what it means to be a Black Country business today, how we tackle the barriers which limit growth or productivity, how do we provide leadership to our organisations, how do we confront skills gaps and ensure our people meet the demands of lifelong learning, which keeps our businesses on the top of their game and competitive, and how we can leverage the unique regional opportunities coming up for the West Midlands, including Coventry City of Culture and Birmingham Commonwealth Games, and make sure that the great work taking place throughout the region in Dudley, Sandwell, Walsall and Wolverhampton remains firmly in the spotlight. As Black Country 2.0 unfurls over the next 12 months, you'll learn more about its three phases to drive resilience and recovery across the region, our plans and how you can get involved. Starting today, we begin the rebooting phase, where we will be supporting businesses to reopen, restart and re-energise. Then from spring and throughout the summer, we'll be focusing on rebuilding and work with businesses to help them refocus, restructure and build resilience. And then as we approach the end of this year and into the start of next year, Black Country 2.0 moves into its final stage, rebounding, where our focus will be very much on supporting businesses and sectors to return to prosperity and growth. Throughout each phase, there'll be plenty of activity to get involved in, including events, a regional conference, exploring what's next for our economy and other opportunities to support one another through this fellowship of businesses brought together by the Chamber. We are recording today's session and we'll be sharing this on social media and it will be available on our website. And we have nearly 200 people at this launch event. If you have any questions or would like more information, you can put these in the chat box and we will follow these up after the event, or you can email policy@blackcountrychamber.co.uk or visit Black Country 2.0's dedicated website, blackcountry2.0.co.uk. As we have a packed programme this afternoon with a number of speakers we have to bring in as presenters or panellists, there might be a few minor delays. but as people turn their cameras on or unmute themselves, please bear with us on this. I think we've all got used to working digitally and attending virtual events such as these, and we've perhaps lost sight of having a more physical environment. There are usually a few delays as panelists change and people are welcome to the stage. This won't be any different. So that's it for me. And an overview of Black Country 2.0. And now I'd like to hand over to Andy Street, Mayor of the West Midlands Combined Authority.
Neil, thank you very much. And it's a pleasure just to say a few words of introduction before we hear from your president. Now, I guess all of our minds will probably go to, if we'd been doing this a year ago, oh, how different it would have been. We'd have been talking about some of the long-standing challenges that the regional economy faces. We know that, but we'd also have been showing some incredible progress as we did when we last came together for a Black Country physical conference. We would have talked about record employment. We'd have talked about rising wages. We'd have been talked particularly about the improvement in the skill level across the Black Country that everyone's worked so hard about. And we would, of course, talked about the transport and housing infrastructure investment. And looking at the West Midlands economy as a whole, we'd have slightly enjoyed the fact we were growing faster than anywhere else, 25% growth over 5 years. But as we all know, those outcomes have been knocked so seriously off course over the last 12 months. And today is really thinking about what are we going to do about it. The bold stats are that in 12 months, the number of people claiming benefits, not all of it job seekers element of universal credit, but the number of people claiming benefits in total across the West Midlands has gone up by over 80,000. It's about as a percentage increase on par with the national average, but it is an enormous increase. And of course, we know that's been focused on the youngest people and the most disadvantaged in society. So just with the health impacts of COVID, the economic impacts have not been felt equally. And then for businesses, I know you're facing the impacts as well. Many of you have been closed for months, but lots of people, even if able to trade, will have faced increased levels of debt. And you'll be thinking, how do I repay that whilst investing at the same time? And then for big exporting businesses, you'll have had the travails of the adjustment to Brexit, let's call it that in a politically neutral way, the adjustment to Brexit to deal with. So we know that we've got enormous challenges. So Black Country 2.0 is perfectly timed. But what I also want just to convince you of today is that we've carried on with some of the big investments that will enable us to bounce back. So let's just swiftly think about some of those that have gone on over the last year, because they will be the seeds of our future success. Taking the region as a whole, first of all, obviously the really probably most important announcement of all came from Jaguar Land Rover last week about a turn to all electric. £2.5 billion they talked about investing per year in that change. I mean, it's an eye-watering amount of money, and they have a business plan to do that. No coincidence that the next day we announced the site of our gigafactory, our battery factory. We now have to get on and entice the investor, and we're working hard on that. Obviously, HS2 and the 13,000 jobs that fall off that already, that's turned from an announcement to real practical diggers in the ground and so many SMEs supplying HS2. The wonderful conference we had up in Bilston, over 800 SMEs joined that virtual conference to look about their opportunities with HS2. And one that I love in Birmingham, it is, if I'm allowed to use a Birmingham example at a Black Country conference, but I do think this is significant regionally, the Life Sciences campus finally coming out of the ground in South Birmingham. That too will be the engine of future growth. If we look at specific Black Country investments, though, the transport investments really, and they're about jobs, connectivity, people being able to get to new jobs in the future, they are really multiplying fast. Obviously, the mummy and daddy of them all is, of course, the Wensbury to Brierley Hill Metro line. That's, again, diggers in the ground now. Just last week, we announced the Dudley Interchange as at the end of that line. And, of course, we're also getting on with the VLR Innovation Centre, the Very Light Rail Innovation Centre in Dudley that we won funding for recently. And then, of course, there are the new stations happening in Wolverhampton City Centre, and the line to Walsall, news on that very, very shortly. And then, of course, unlocking brownfield sites. This has been a big feature of investment in the Black Country in the last year. The biggest of all, Phoenix 10, 1,000 jobs near Walsall, the funding for that in place, the plans in with Walsall Council. We've seen the work in West Bromwich Town Centre with the wretched Bull Street car park coming down. We've seen the developments beginning to be planned at Friar Park, a huge housing scheme there on a site. People said no one would be able to do that. And of course, holding it all together at Wolverhampton University, the National Brownfield Institute. So if you bring us right up to date, I would argue, yes, those things are there in defiance of the pandemic. They're talking about our future and thinking about the future. Just today, I've had 2 events, but I should mention them because I think they're so symbolic of our future. One with Wolverhampton College, where we opened the new training facility around electric vehicle technicians. And then just this afternoon, the Digital Innovation Hub at Walsall College, all thinking about the future, thinking about new opportunity. So I would put it to you that it's been an incredibly tough year. No one could possibly have anticipated the challenge that you as business leaders will have faced. But I genuinely think we've kept our course and we can look forward to optimism, not just to the bounce back that will come from consumer expenditure, but from one of these very planful things come to fruition across the Black Country. So Neil, thank you for letting me say a few words and hopefully maintaining an optimistic note in the face of the evidence. And I very much look forward to hearing from your president next.
Thank you, Andy. That's really helpful context for the and backdrop to frame Black Country 2.0 and some great insights and information there for this afternoon's attendees. For those of you with specific questions for the Mayor, we are actually hosting an Ask Andy session on the morning of the 9th of March, which members are welcome to attend, and we'll put that link in the chat box. I'd now like to welcome our President, Jude Thompson, who will share his views on Black Country 2.0 before we then welcome our CEO, Corinne Crane, who will lead a panel discussion with Black Country 2.0's business partners. Jude, over to you.
Thank you, Neil, and thank you very much for that introduction, Andy. Good afternoon, everybody, and a warm welcome from me, Jude Thompson, to our Black Country 2.0 launch event. We really appreciate your time and support. For those of you who don't know who I am, where have you been? I've been the resident president here at the Black Country Chamber of Commerce, and this is my 2nd year of the presidency, and what is usually a very interactive role with numerous face-to-face meetings and events, which Neil alluded to earlier, is now largely confined to the representation by virtual methods such as these. I'm still persevering to be a lead ambassador alongside Corinne and the others in these very strange times, and we're still have been engaging with a large number of projects and innovations across the region. Personally, I'm involved as the chair of the super board for the Sandwell Towns Fund, looking to obtain over £75 million worth of investment for the region. I'm also educational ambassador for a local school as well, helping understand how these times are affecting the students in the region, and looking to help them through some of these times. We truly welcome the support of our Mayor Andy Street and the help of the Combined Authority, as we appreciate their input is essential to the success moving our region forward. The work of our chamber has been second to none over the last 12 months, and we're thrilled to announce the launch of Black Country 2.0 as the chamber's priority in how we respond and support our members over the next year and beyond. Many of you might not be aware, but the Black Country Chamber of Commerce and Industry celebrates its 20th anniversary next month. Yet its legacy stretches back over 2 centuries as the successor organisation to the individual chambers which operated in the towns and boroughs and the cities across our region. It takes its legacy seriously and has proven time and time again its credentials as a respected and valued voice of the Black Country business community. A constant enabler, facilitator and business champion for dreamers, inventors, makers, entrepreneurs and leaders of industry who made this region the beating heart of the modern world back in the days of the Industrial Revolution to the businesses who power our economy today. The pandemic has had devastating effects on businesses, but more importantly, the lives of many people across the globe. And as a CEO of a tech solutions provider based here in the Black Country and directly dealing with UK companies that have bases across the globe, I've felt its effects firsthand, like so many of you have. I've been helping our customers deal with the new ways of working, and for many of us, it's becoming a flexible workforce, with businesses now more than ever promoting and creating new innovative ways of working. This has increased the need to secure our systems, develop processes that promote new flexible workforce, which I think is potentially here to stay. We have all moved through the last 12 months in our own way, dealing with the challenges that have changed literally day by day. For some of us, that has meant business growth, helping businesses adapt and change. For others, it has meant cutting everything back to even give a chance of survival. We have evolved and adapted and helped our clients to do so, like many of you. Also, we're now operating in a radically different trading environment and a plan for the future which looks different from how it did last year. To make this a success, quite simply, Black Country 2.0 needs you. Through the work of this campaign, the Chamber will ensure that your needs and issues are amplified and listened to, that you have access to the latest information and insights, and that you can use the power of the Chamber to make connections and play a role in shaping what the future looks like for business in our great region. This ability to amplify and support businesses is one of the things that Chamber does really well. A recent example of this is where we have been able to escalate concerns and issues that our members are currently facing as we enter what is becoming a real transition period, especially with the likes of Brexit. Bringing these concerns directly to the combined authority has meant the real decisions and actions are taken directly to help our members. The media and our elected officials are alongside pushing for greater support and rollout of the lateral flows testing to help keep businesses open. And with the success and progression of the vaccine rollout, we can almost see a light at the end of this very long tunnel. I would absolutely encourage you all to get involved and join with the power of the Chamber as we reboot, rebuild, rebound as a business community. Black Country 2.0 is something that we will put the region on the map as a driving force for helping businesses move forward, and I expect that other regions will be following our example. Once again, thank you for your support, our Black Country Chamber 2.0, and I'd like to hand over now to Corinne Crane, our Chief Executive, and today's panel.
Hey, cheers, Jude. Thank you very much, mate. It's a good time in this, isn't it? And I think Andy and Jude have summed this up. It's this feels like a time to be positive, doesn't it? It feels like a time to sort of have a bit of swagger back in our steps. There's no doubt about it that in the coming months we've got some difficult times as a region, as a business community. But you know what? There's with the vaccine, with the numbers going down, we've begun to feel a tiny bit of optimism in the air. The roadmap, if nothing else, gives us some strategy to work to. It understands that maybe this July, end of this June, this July, businesses will start to operate again, start to open up again, which will be absolutely fantastic, won't it? You know what? Our pubs and our restaurants might be going. We might be able to go out for a meal or a drink with our friends again, which would be absolutely fantastic. So now just feels like the time to start to shout about the region again, doesn't it? Start to be proud about what we do, you know, about the region, about our services, our shops, our manufacturers and our tourist attractions. Now, we as a Chamber, we're only as strong as our relationships with you lot, the local businesses around this area. So it's really important that you engage with us. Black Country 2.0 is all about engagement, about you telling us the issues you're having, celebrations you're having, successes, what's going on, and making sure that we can work alongside you to do that work. So throughout this campaign, we'll be absolutely raising your voice at every opportunity, shouting really loud and really proudly about the Black Country and what an amazing, amazing place we are to do trade with. And we know this, don't we? You've built in the Black Country and sold around the world. If there's one thing about the Britain coming out of Brexit, brand UK will be more important than ever. And actually, brand Black Country will be equally important. Let's show people how bloody cool we are and what brilliant services and products we've got. And that's what 2.0 means to me. Now, for the next 20 minutes, we've got some amazing panelists who have been really, really supportive of us for this campaign. So I would thank them all starting off with. I've got a few questions to ask you about what all this means to you as well. But we've got Anil from Money Corps. Hello there. Emma from Foresters. Hiya. Heather from DIT. Hi, Heather. We've got Neil from Mamby Bowdler. Thank you, mate. And Richard from EBC Group. Richard, I'm going to start with you, if that's all right. Considering the need to reboot our economy, restart it, this idea of re-energising workforces and our office slightly, that's no small task after the last 12 months we've had, is it? What have you been doing in your business to sort of get your staff ready for the next 12 months?
Hi, Corinne. I think the focus for us as an IT company, we've always looked at flexible working anyway. And I think the adoption of that very early doors, for a lot of people panicking and saying we need to be working from home, there was a huge challenge. And the statistics are pretty amazing that 65% of businesses weren't ready and were ill prepared to work from home. So the challenge is really, and it dovetails perfectly with a lot of the detail now in Black Country 2.0, is about resilience. Those lovely words, because what does that mean in the technical world? It actually means that we've had COVID, we've had a pandemic, we've actually got a cyber pandemic as well. And we need to make sure all Black Country businesses, owners, stakeholders, focus purely on their cyber security, because we have a pandemic. It is rife at the moment, and it's been sad to see too many businesses over the last 12 months be hit by a cyber attack in some way, and it's crippling. It really is. So we've got to start really with building that skill set. So there's a skill shortage there. I firmly believe that the education to our members is so important to say that, are you protecting yourselves correctly? Are you insured correctly? So there's a lot of focus for us around our clientele, many to all our businesses. There's many of these events I can get on to say, guys, it's the investment in IT is not big enough. How do we collaborate? Investment from government, connectivity, as we've talked about. I'm not sure you know about the DCMS have now pulled their funding for connectivity. It's finished. They're saying we've spent out. We need to generate that again and go again. It's too early. We need it now. So it is technology led. And when we talk about rebuilding, to make sure resilience is there, we've got to make sure the technology resilience is there, because if that stops, everything else stops as well. And I see obviously on the rebounding, we've got cybersecurity on that as a list. So it's been flagged, Corinne, and that's a key area. People like Jude and I can really do some good work to help and lobby to make sure we get the right education to our members, and hopefully get some funding to support that as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, mate. I think regardless of COVID now, we've accelerated our move online in a whole host of ways, haven't we? And protecting ourselves in what will be a new cyber world, and everyone's in that world, whether they like it or not. Now, today's a good example of that, isn't it? That's very important. Thank you, Richard. Neil, I was going to come to you next, if that's okay, Neil. I mean, FBC will have been operating throughout the lockdown anyway, and I guess you've been working from home, but you've got quite a wide spread. How are you getting your staff ready for this idea of getting back to the market again?
Yeah, well, so we've remained open throughout. So the offices of over in Snow Hill have been open to varying degrees. But when we originally locked down, everybody just shifted working from home. And thankfully, we'd made the investment in the prior year that allowed us to do that, with a view to actually bringing in more of an agile working practices. So that has gone reasonably well. I think we've obviously got teams that are dealing with conveyancing who are absolutely flat out at the minute, and waiting for the announcement next week on stamp duty, land tax. But for me, it's just been about listening to the staff. We're kind of at the re-energising point now, I think, where we're flicking our focus from crisis management to actually what does the next 12, 24, 36 months look like, and where are we going as a business, and how do we continue to invest in the technology and the digital solutions that we have done over the last 12 to 24 months to make sure the clients continue to get access to the services at the time they want to access the services.
Thanks, Neil. It does feel that this the reliance on digital services is something we're going to be coming back to more and more in the future, isn't it? From both the first two speakers. Hey, Emma from Foresters, how are you? So, how are you getting your teams ready for the rebirth and the reintroduction to the economy again?
Internally, not been open. We've sort of had a skeleton staff in the office, so it is going to be a bit of a change when we actually get back into the office. I think the change to working from home was literally overnight, but I think the transition back into the office is going to be a much sort of longer term change, and we've had a lot of flexible working requests, and I think we're far more open to that than we would have been 12 months ago. I think it's really opened our eyes just how reliant, obviously as a service provider, we're totally reliant on our people, and sort of giving them the opportunity to work in the way that suits them and their lifestyles is a really important thing for us to focus on. So trying to sort of work with our members of staff and trying to make the transition back to the office suit each one of them is what's going to be key for us, I think.
Brilliant. Thank you, Emma. And Neil, a nice quiet time, I imagine, for people in foreign exchange at the moment, isn't it? How have you dealt with getting your staff? And I guess a lot of your staff are working from home and remotely as well.
Hi, Corinne. Yes, they have been. We were affected as everybody else was 12 months ago, and it's been an incredible 12 months, full of highs and lows. To give you an idea and to steep this in more in what has been happening on the ground from a Money Corp perspective. So in 2020, I personally worked with travel agents and high street retailers who had a really, really difficult time. But we also work with company locally who was importing hundreds of millions of pounds worth of PPE. So I think that gives you an idea of how reflective of how extreme a year 2020 was. We're seeing a bit more of a return to normality now. We've seen a pickup in markets. There's been a lot more movements even in the last few weeks. Sterling has strengthened quite considerably. We're now around the 4-year high against the dollar in terms of sterling, and then also doing quite well against euro as well. So the markets have certainly helped. Whenever there is volatility, there is an increase in activity, and therefore we've had more of our staff coming back into the offices and engaging with businesses, in the local region, but also throughout the UK.
Brilliant. Thank you, my friends. And Heather, over to you next. I mean, Heather, you'll be with DIT. You'll be working with an awful lot of companies that have just remained open and manufacturing throughout the lockdown period. How have you found that some of your companies are trying to reinvent themselves for what's coming up?
I think they're getting ahead and planning. Right through lockdown, so ever since last year, the DIT team, we decamped home, but we've been providing support for businesses, and it was quite interesting to know that even when we had intense lockdown, certainly those in the food sector were still operating. Since then, since the reopening, manufacturing businesses have been getting back to work and going strong. And what's interesting to note that over the course of the last 11 months, there still has been a lot of export activity that's been going on. I think that's got lost in the messaging sometimes. I know that as ITAs, I mean, as a team, we work across a range of sectors. So people who sell everything from duvet covers through to virtually reality theme parks and cupcakes to components for the nuclear trade industry. Though those sales have still been going on, and there's been opportunities overseas. Indeed, in some instances where the market was down, or maybe there was lockdown in a certain market, people were actually sourcing from different companies globally. So businesses, if they had a good web presence, they were often finding that they were coming up with new customers during that time. Others have been hard hit. So it would be wrong of me to paint a particular rosy period, but I think we have to recognise that where businesses are flexible, they're reacting to the opportunities out there. There are some really good opportunities available for them. And now what we're finding is they're planning for the future. They're really keen and eager to take advantage of all that research and all that work they've been doing through virtual means, such as virtual meetings, keeping in touch and trying to build client bases, to get out there now and be seeing businesses, going to trade shows. They recognise in the short term that might be virtual, but for the long term, they're planning for what they can do next year. So as a team, we're really busy, and we're really, really keen to work with as many businesses as we can to help them on the road.
Brilliant. Thank you, Heather. I'm going to come back around the panel again now. This is a bit more of a, I guess, more of a personal question, and about leadership skills, really, and about how you as a leaders have dealt with the COVID crisis. I mean, me personally, I found it very strange. I'm quite a tactile person, quite in your face, as probably a couple of you all know, but like being tucked away in a little office sometimes is not the easiest way to lead anybody, a team or anything else, and you can do so much of this, can't you? So it was a couple of questions, really. One about you personally. What has COVID told you about as you as a leader and as a business person? And the second one, have you felt a need as a leader to stay relevant and modern through this process? Does this feel like a time where you can sort of like reinvent yourself slightly in your business? Richard, I'll start with you again, if that's okay.
Yeah, thanks, Corin. Yeah, I've really enjoyed the journey, actually, to reinvent myself, because very much like yourself, I think maybe a generation thing that we're very much hands-on, like talking to people, having a cup of tea and a biscuit with them and making them feel comfortable. Because of the first lockdown, it happened so severely, everybody just went home. It's actually allowed me to reflect on really my relationship with all my leadership team. And it's quite interesting, because trying to get information out of them when you're sat face to face is pretty easy, because you can tell them that they're not having a good day or having a good day. You can ask, why you're high, why you're not so high, or how are things. People are, and again, especially in groups like we've got today, people fade to the back and they don't come forward with all the suggestions. So being more aware, your questioning techniques, a bit more planning as well, because sometimes you can go into a meeting and not plan so well, because you can see people and talk to them, but you've got to really work with them to try and get information out of them. And that's information to do with work, because they've got other challenges, obviously, outside work, if they're homeschooling, particularly at the moment. And I've had to really engage and jump onto more calls to listen better. That's one of my failings, is assuming that people are okay, assuming too many things. And I've had to confirm, and very, very lucky for me, I have a HR lawyer who's worked with me for about 7 years internally now, and she's kept me on the straight and narrow by just double checking and triple checking with my staff. So I've loved looking in the mirror, and not that part, but reflecting ultimately on what I am as a leader, what people are looking at, and the contact with people is important, because you can go for a week and then it's 2 weeks and it's 3 weeks and you haven't contacted those people, you haven't engaged with them on a one-to-one basis, and that's something I've learned and have enjoyed. And I've learned so much more about my team as well, which is it's going to put me in a good stead for the future with them to build a bigger and better business.
Thank you, Richard. And Neil, what have you learned about yourself as a leader over the last 12 months?
There's a question. I think I'd like to think I've always made the best decisions for the business for the long term with FBC. I think some of the decisions probably could have communicated them better in the early days. So I'd like to think my communication skills have improved over time. The feedback I've had is that my very calm and steady manner in the way that I've delivered messages has been very well appreciated. We've not panicked. Everybody's got their challenges. And then, as Richard said, it's listening. So we now we have engagement surveys that go out every 90 days, where they used to be every just once a year, which gives me a great insight into what the staff are feeling. And then, as I said, the offices have been open, so I have been out and about. And even though there's a skeleton staff, in Wolverhampton, then I've been there to catch up with them and see how they're feeling, what their challenges are, and how we can make life a little bit better for them.
Thank you. Yeah, homeschooling's been a bit of a challenge as well. So on top of all that, I can imagine it's been the same for you, mate. So, and Emma, how's it been at Foresters? What does leadership look like during lockdown at Foresters?
It's been difficult. I think because we are very sort of insular in our own little sort of team bubbles. So we have had to be really proactive in making sure that we are keeping in touch with people that we wouldn't necessarily just be talking to at the water cooler or whatever. In a normal day-to-day environment in the office, you'd pass the time of day with people, but since coming home, we've had to really make that effort to make sure that we've kept in touch with people that we wouldn't ordinarily sort of come into contact with in our working lives. So that has been the most difficult thing, is sort of making sure that you interact with people that aren't necessarily in your team, as well as keeping an eye on everybody that you actually directly work with. So it takes a lot more time than sort of being in the office and just sort of being able to just say good morning to somebody. You've actually got to make the effort to jump on a Teams call or invite them to something, and that's been a sort of a pretty steep learning curve, but I think we've managed it. I hope we have. Neil's point about sort of getting that engagement survey data more frequently, I think, is a really interesting point. Sort of getting, you might think you're doing something well, but actually getting that feedback from your members of staff is really important, isn't it?
Thank you, Emma. And Anil, I imagine you must have agents all over the country, all doing different things within your business. What does leadership look like? Has it changed much? If you're quite peripatetic anyway.
It definitely has, and I echo what Emma said. I think initially it was difficult. We moved immediately to a working from home environment, as everybody did, and personally, I put my hands up, but it was wrong. You're trying to replicate exactly what you did in the office at home, and I think that was difficult in the beginning because there were IT issues. People had their own. They were contending with working with kids who are at home and all sorts of other issues. So I think it's been a journey where over the last 12 months, become, you have to have greater empathy with people who are working at home. There needs to be time where they spend time away from the desk, because what I found is working from home, you don't have set breaks. You don't get out for lunch. You're working from 7 or 8 a.m. until 6 and 7, and you put the kids to bed and you're back at it. So, I think it's been a journey where I've been cognizant of the fact that people do have, so much going on now, more so than ever, outside of the workplace, and then helping them, navigate that. And if that means, regular breaks throughout the day and getting away, encouraging them to get away, for their own mental health a lot of the time, then that's what we've done. But I think we're in a much better place, as what's been said as well. We're more supportive of our colleagues and friends, and I think people are just more, like I said, have greater empathy about what other people are going through. So hopefully, when we're through this and we're back in the office, that will carry over as well. Thank you.
And Heather, far be it from me to ask about what leadership's like in the civil service. From you personally, on two levels really. I mean, how have you coped with your account management? And secondly, have you seen any really good examples of leadership from some of the companies you're working with? Oh, Heather, you're on mute, mate.
Sorry. It's all about communication, isn't it? That's at the crux of it. So communicating with the businesses that we work with and keeping in touch with them. Many of us are working from home, but many of the companies that we're working with are working from home. I think that the ones that where there's flexibility and where businesses have recognised those challenges of working from home, but also really looked at opportunities where it's possible to get people back into the office as well. In my experience, that the businesses where they seem to have the right mix is manufacturing staff are in the office, but a lot of the other staff perhaps have 1 or 2 days in the office and other days at home. For us as a DIT team working for a government department, invariably we're getting information that's coming through for us. But we as a team, a small team, it's all about having regular meetings, ringing each other, sharing information, having a chat when we need it, a little bit of empathy, I think, as the others have said, and recognising other people's stresses, but also the successes that they're seeing every day.
Brilliant, thank you. I had a really good question actually sent in from Martin Dudley, who a lot you'll know from Thomas Dudley on the call. And Martin's saying quite rightly, Chambers of Commerce should be, we're the voice of business, aren't we? Bringing everybody together, this megaphone for businesses, and campaigns like this really need businesses to engage, to give us validity when we're arguing with the people who make decisions in the country. It's really hard to get SMEs particularly to engage in programs sometimes, isn't it? Because we know that the ones who are most active, the ones who will benefit from some of the work we're doing. And it's just for the panelists to think about this one. What do you think we can do to get more SMEs engaged in this type of activity? Richard, I'll start with you if that's okay.
Again, good question. I think my particular view, as you know, is all about technology, and I think that would engage them in one subject, and I think then you just literally would allow the rest of us really to go in and talk about other subjects. But I'm very focused on, I've just seen too many business owners, shareholders, stakeholders, the pain they've had when they've been hit by a cyber attack, and then their insurance policy doesn't stand up. 4 out of 5 the key areas of their insurance policy is under insured. So for me is to educate, and we've all talked about communicate, but educate and support. And I think lobbying government in lots of ways, like unfortunately owning a football club, I've been having lots of contact with the DCMS to actually discuss ways they can fund us and support us. And I think it's a similar focus really to understand what is around. We truly understand that the skill shortage is there when it comes to cybersecurity. It seems to be if you're good at cybersecurity, you're actually working against us because you can make money. Too many of my clients have seen Bitcoin, and we're talking a lot. If everybody knows what Bitcoin is, like £40,000 or something, $40,000 for Bitcoin, and they're shedding out sort of 4, 5 to 15, 20 Bitcoins to pay off ransomware. It's education. We really need to educate our members of the severity of what a cyber attack looks like and what ransomware looks like, but how can we support them? Because it does need a level of skill sets internally or externally, but it's also a very, very expensive business focus and expenditure if they want to do it at a certain level. People are putting money into it, but it's not necessarily the right level, and it's a continual. It's not just today, it's forever now, unfortunately, to fight these criminals. So it's education, and it's trying to get as much investment from local business like ourselves, because we're an SME, and I've seen too many SMEs in a painful position to react not just to COVID, but to the next pandemic, and this is worse for a lot of them. Especially there's no jab, in the future. It's investment. So how do we lobby government to say where the investment is? As I said, the connectivity one is an example. That's finished now apparently. So how do we go again on that one? So that's where I'd like to start.
Thank you. And Neil, coming to you, I mean, you work hard to raise the profile of your business. I've seen you many places in your craft. What's the best way to engage with SMEs? Some businesses can be a little bit standoffish.
They can. I think, and for me, it's always been around what's the prize. So what's the purpose? And I guess it's what I do in my own business. When I'm asking people for more and more and more, it's what's the prize at the end of the tunnel. And I guess that's what we need to make sure we paint that picture for SMEs. So when we talk about rebounding and re-energizing, it's, well, what does that 6 months, 12 months time, what are the rewards going to be? If we get it right, what will the Black Country look like in comparison to anywhere else in the country?
Brilliant. Thank you. And the same question to you, Emma. One of the things that struck me with conversations we've had in the past is that you've got knowledge and products that most businesses would benefit from using, but it's hard to engage with them sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, we tend to be quite often we're at a crisis purchase, if you like. People only come to us after something's gone wrong quite often. So part of my job is to educate people to kind of there early and protect what they work so hard to achieve. So all this time that they've sort of innovating and as mentioned, they've had all of this sort of innovation and development that's been going on maybe in the background for the last year or so, and I really want to help people to protect what they've done and worked so hard to achieve, without it kind of being all sort of lost or somebody else taking advantage of it. So that's the message that I'm trying to get across. Don't let others trade off their successes without putting up a decent fight and really looking after what they've worked so hard to do.
And for you, what's your best way of engaging businesses? Because actually, sometimes you've got to rattle some cages, haven't you? You've got to get people sort of actually enthused in agendas.
Yeah, definitely. It's been it can be difficult, definitely, which is why forums like this are so good. And it's such a good way of reaching many more people. And I hope this does continue once we do transition back into the workplace, because it is, arguably an easier way to reach many more people. I think what we've been doing is really trying to stress, the impact that, I know foreign exchange is ultimately like a byproduct of businesses engaging, internationally, engaging and working with different currencies. But if we think of in 2020, UK was the worst performing economy in Europe. In 2021, we are likely to be the best performing economy. And like I said earlier, you've seen sterling really strengthen over the last the last 6 months since the first lockdown, definitely. So there's a lot of optimism that we're going to have a V-shaped recovery, and the second half of the year is going to go really well. But there are real risks to the downside, and that's what we want to make businesses aware of. Are you aware? I know there's so many things going on at the moment. There's increased freight costs, documentation issues, but if we do have a downturn in the UK economy, especially if we compare it to the US and Europe, in the US, we're likely to see a fiscal relief package introduced this week. Europe will eventually get its house in order in regards to the COVID vaccine rollout. Then the UK might not look, as good as it does at the moment in 6 months' time, and our business is ready for what the impact that might have on them. We might be in a situation where markets move 5 to 10% in either direction, and it's just a process of educating businesses and working with them to understand, okay, if this does happen, are you well positioned to make sure that you are in a good place going into the second half of 2021. So just continuing to have the conversations, I think, is really important.
Brilliant, thank you. Heather, I'm going to stop it there with you, if that's all right. We're sort of running out of time, and I'm going to come to you again in a second, if that's okay. We've sort of run out of time for this panel session. We had a couple of really good questions as well to get to from Vicky around peer-to-peer networks, the importance of peer-to-peer networks, and we know from personal experience when you get businesses talking to each other, they are some of the most powerful conversations you're going to have in networking opportunities. And also from Jeff Layer from the university about, you know, roles that chambers might take around supporting innovation. Couldn't agree more. And if before I sort of thank the panelists, it's just my one part I would say is for this to work, the levelling up agenda is more important than it's ever been before. We know that in the West Midlands we get hit hard by recessions, and particularly in the Black Country in Birmingham. We know that, you know, that our skills levels are some of the lowest in the country, and actually we've got some quite old-fashioned manufacturing businesses around that need support to innovate. And levelling up to me means an absolutely huge amount of money and investment in our transport, in our skills systems, in our energy systems. We need real commitment from the government, and you know, there's a big announcement coming next week about what the West Midlands economy could be if we had all that more investment. We're already doing so well, and give us some more money, give us some more resources, give us the infrastructure we need, and we'll be absolutely brilliant in the future. And that's what we need from the government next year for us to have a Black Country 2.0 that will be a success. Look, for all of you, thank you all very much to my my colleagues around the table here, to Neil, to Emma, to Richard, to Heather, and Neil. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Corin. Thank you very much.
There's huge applause going on all around the country. If you open your windows, you'll hear all the people on the call clapping you. So thank you for that.
Cheers, Corin.
Yeah, and thank you for your support. Thank you, everyone, from me. I'll shut up now. And the next part of the session, I'm going to hand over to Heather from DIT. Heather, it's over to you.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Corin, and hello, everybody. Now I'm going to provide a little bit of information about the support that DIT can offer in really helping to reboot and get things going again. So hopefully Alex will have my slides on the screen. That would be great if we could have a look at those. So this is very much focused on looking to the future, increasing overseas sales and access to global opportunities. The focus of this session is indeed around clean growth and clean growth opportunities. And my colleagues Ben and Ian are going to talk a little bit more about that and how clean growth can really lay the foundations for a great future going forward. But before we look at that, I just wanted to share a little bit of information with you about the work that DIT is doing to help and support exporters along the route. So I'm one of a team of 4 ITAs who are based in the Chamber of Commerce offices. When we were in the office, we were sat in between the export documentation team and the Black Country Chamber membership team. So very much working in conjunction with the Chamber to help and support businesses on the route. If I could have the next slide, Alex, please. What I wanted to do firstly was really give you a little bit of a flavour of some of the support that we've given to Black Country businesses over the last 11 months. I know that's looking back, but I think hopefully it'll give you a little bit of feeling of what opportunities there are for the future. If this was the situation during the challenges we've had of the last 11 months, there's even greater opportunities, I think, going for the future. The reason that I wanted to show you this slide, and I'm sorry it's not overly clear, you probably need your binoculars with you, is really just to have a look at the range of sectors that we're working with as a team. So that might be medical devices, it might be construction products, it might be education and training, professional services, food and drink, automotive, a whole range of different sectors that we help and support, and a range of countries that Black Country businesses have sold into within the last 11 months. And as you'll see, there's a lot that's gone into the UAE and the US, but if you look around that table, you will see that's been sales from countries as far apart as Iraq, where in actual fact there's parts for the water sector going in there, through to Ireland, and from Spain, which again is a close market, through to South Korea. So lots of Black Country businesses have the capacity and the capability to sell across the globe, and we want to help you as a team to continue and build on those foundations and increase your sales going forward. Next slide, please, Alex. So just in overview, Department for International Trade, most of you will know, government department, it covers international trade and investment. The investment side is inward investment, helping businesses come here, set up, create jobs in the UK. And those businesses often then end up exporting again as well. The trade side is the side that I'm on, and that's export. Also within that brand of products, our UK Export Finance, that's government credit agency, and it provides a range of support for helping to finance export, particularly in challenging markets, providing working capital loans, supporting the market, underwriting the finance markets to do that, and also helping with credit insurance, again in markets that are perhaps a little bit challenging and the high street can't provide credit insurance for. The Trade Policy Group is the one that most people probably think about when they think about Department for International Trade. Those are the free trade agreements that are now being created across and around the globe. Around 62 have been agreed to date, and governments have got targets to complete 80% of those within the next 3 years. There's also the Export Control Unit. Those are the people who issue the licenses for military goods and sanctioned goods to sanctioned countries. But coming back to the support that's available for Black country businesses, that is where we're looking at the international trade team. Next slide, please, Alex. So there's a global network that we have. UK trade advisors here based locally in the Black country. We offer free and impartial support on a one-to-one basis for businesses. We're supported and work very closely with our colleagues in the embassies and consulates around the world, and also with the sector team within DIT in London, where you have specialists in sectors who are very much looking at promoting British brands, the British brand, the great brand, to customers right across the globe, and looking at how they can forge relationships with different countries to promote British businesses within those countries. Alongside of those, there are partner organisations that we work with very closely. So government is in 100 countries and 162 markets. There's representation on promoting British goods, helping to gather in-market support and information, but most importantly, identifying export opportunities for business. Next slide, please, Alex. I wanted to just remind you, give you a flavour of all those products that are currently being exported from the Black country and the companies that we are working with. So as you can see, it's a very wide range of diverse products, and it's not just products, there's services as well, whether it's training services for children or cyber security services for businesses. Next slide, please, Alex. So as a team, what do? We can help you on that road to internationalization or on your export journey, whether it's a new and inexperienced company, an inexperienced exporter that needs more intensive help, or an established exporter that maybe sells reactively at the moment and wants to start thinking about proactive sales, or indeed wants to look at entering new markets. There's a whole range of support services activities that we've got in our toolkit to help you along the way. If we start off, Alex, next slide, please. If I start off by mentioning the Export Academy, this is for the small businesses, those who are with turnovers of less than 500k or are totally new to export. They haven't thought about it before, but they want to look at the opportunities that there is out there in the wider world for them to grow their business. This is currently being run by my colleague Aaron. He provides one-to-one support and often also opens up information about virtual masterclasses. As you can see, it's an introduction to export. It helps companies to understand the benefits, but also the barriers, the things that you need to consider if you're going to export goods. And there's a whole raft of masterclasses, workshops and webinars to just help you through that start of your journey in the export activity. Alex, next slide, please. And that brings us on to those companies who want to grow their businesses. So whether it's starting to export proactively or selling to new markets, we can offer that through the international trade advisors. And as I mentioned, there's 4 of us. What we do is we offer a tailored approach, one-to-one engagement with your local business. We are the person to go to. One of my colleagues from one of the other teams says we're the best friend for any future exporter that you could wish. Certainly, as a team, that's what we hope to be. And we're certainly committed to helping you on your journey. The first thing we would do is probably undertake an export review. Depends if we've worked with you before, but if not, and if you're new, we'd undertake an export review. And so we can understand your growth plans, your objectives, your product, your route to market, and the resources that you have. And from that foundation, then we can help you develop an export plan or a strategy to undertake market research and find the new markets, to help plan out a series of activities. If grants are applicable and you need grant funding to either go along to a trade show or to make a market visit, or to think about how you can internationalize your website, undertake some market research, we can help to advise you about if there is grant funding and what the grant funding can do for you. There's eligibility criteria for that, but we can talk you through it. At the end of the day, this is all about finding new overseas contacts and customers. And Ian, I know, will touch upon that in relation to clean growth very shortly. We also run a series of events, Meet the Buyer events. These are great opportunities for Black Country businesses to be connected up with potential customers. So on Wednesday this week, customers or companies selling into the construction industry had the opportunity to meet one of the major contractors who are buying products for contracts that they're delivering for infrastructure and for other construction activity in the Middle East and Africa. And we've got another one of those coming up on the 9th and 10th of March. So certainly if you're interested in infrastructure, you supply into the supply chains for infrastructure construction, do get in touch and we can tell you how you can connect into those. We also have another Meet the Buyer activity that's working around the food sector, the food and drink sector. So we can provide information about the detail of that. We can connect you up to specialists in your sectors. And one of our specialists who provides a tremendous amount of support for Black Country businesses is our colleague Teresa. She's the digital trade advisor, and she helps businesses to think about how they can internationalize their website. But most importantly, your website is your global shop front, and it's been so important during this period of the pandemic that businesses have been able to be found quickly and readily via the internet. Businesses have been finding that they have new customers going to them because they've got a good global message, a global marketing approach through their website. And we have other specialists that we can bring into the equation who can help on negotiation of business styles, language, route to market, agents and distributor agreements, trademarks, protecting your trademarks overseas. Alongside that tailored approach for building an export strategy, we also can offer one-off export advice. And we've provided lots of help and guidance and assistance through the whole COVID journey, but also through the EU exit activity that's currently going on. It's very much about managing the risks, making things happen, helping you to win export orders for the future. More information is on the Great Dot website. And Alex, the last slide, please. This is the team that I'd like to introduce you to. So alongside myself, I have my colleague Marion Doherty, who particularly focuses, she has a lot of activity, sector activity on infrastructure and construction. Jane Shields, who works around health and also education and training. Gerald Latouche, who does a lot with the oil and gas sector and the energy sector. I myself have the excitement of the space sector, and there's a lot happening on space. In fact, there's going to be a launch of a new sector plan for the space industry, the maritime industry, and also the advanced engineering sector. And advanced engineering really is at the foundations of so many Black Country businesses. So we've got lots of activity and offer of support there. Aaron, as I said, is the Export Academy. He can look at those businesses who are new to export and want to find out more about the procedures to follow. And then with that leads me into my introduction to my colleague, Eben Stevens, who is our Clean Growth Cluster Advisor. Never fails to amaze me how difficult it is to say clean growth. We quite frequently end up saying green growth. But Ian, over to you.
Thanks, Heather. So my name is Ian Stevens. It's lovely to be speaking to everybody this afternoon. I am the Clean Growth Advisor for the Black Country. Following me will be my colleague Ben Roby, who will look at things as a more of a general overview of clean growth. I'm going to try and put perspective with regards to local area. So I do apologise if we actually repeat things, but probably there'll be things that are actually important. Next slide, Alex, please. I think these are just some of the things that I think people need to read and understand. I know that many people will be confused slightly by clean growth, but it means growing our national income whilst cutting greenhouse gas emissions. But it's actually a lot more than that. Clean growth is not a sector, but a cross-cutting theme. It goes across the entire economy. So really, anybody within the economy, this is something for you. And probably the most prevalent one is climate change will create the greatest commercial opportunity of our time, from the Bank of England governor. Clean growth needs to be seen as a business opportunity. Businesses all over the UK should be taking advantage of the low carbon economy and growing supply chain opportunities. For me, there's never been a better time to look forward to the next industrial revolution. We don't actually get phone calls from companies to say, I've got a clean growth inquiry. So what we need to do is to assist companies to look at the green agenda and help them find opportunities. Next one, Alex. That's probably quite small looking on the page. So just to explain, the 10-point plan for a green revolution to invest in the UK actually came out just at the end of last year. It's making the UK a global leader in green technologies on what we can do while transforming our economy and delivering jobs and growth across the country. The 10-point plan potentially could deliver billions of private investment by 2030 across energy, buildings, transport, innovation, and the natural environment. All these will position the UK to take advantage of export opportunities presented by the low carbon technologies and services into new global emerging markets, providing jobs and reinvigorating our industrial heartlands. For anyone involved in putting together a business plan at the moment, please read the plan, based on the fact that it shows how we can embrace looking at the next industrial revolution. And for the Black Country region, it's how we can actually build on our heritage. It is critical local businesses understand that whilst we have tradition and centuries of being at the heartlands of the Industrial Revolution, change needs to happen now to ensure that we have a long-term future for the local economy. If you don't want to read it, and I do appreciate that it's quite a long document, please give me a call and I'm happy to actually look at your supply chain and see how we can benefit and find you opportunities that come about from the 10-point plan and enables you to engage on the green agenda. Next one, Alex, please. The government's industrial strategy revolves around decarbonisation plan for net zero and is critical for the low carbon and environmental goods services sector. I suppose when we think about clean growth, the first thing anybody thinks about is renewable energy and wind farms. The second thought is probably, we live in the Black Country. We do traditional industries. What's this got to do with me? Actually, you'd be very, very wrong. The Black Country not only has many companies that fit into those subsectors in the diagram at the side, but we're exporting lots of products. When we seem to have the largest number of environmental waste companies per capita, and for a region that has some more SMEs than anywhere else, don't think the projects are too big, because if you are supplying fasteners to a wind turbine manufacturer, you're part of the green agenda. So if you look at the items on the side, you can see that we're involved with wind, with regards to building technologies, alternative fuels, solar, waste, biomass, etc. These are all part of the low carbon agenda that basically the Black Country companies are doing particularly well. The problem is the volume is half the national average. So we need to find opportunities that meets the local supply chain and see how we can champion the local supply chain with overseas clients. Next, please, Alex. These are just a few countries that we're actually talking to, on which basically they've been explaining trends and the needs for their country. Some of them are going to give us wish lists, others will give us real opportunities, and we can bid, and the DIT are happy to assist you with them. Please don't tell us that this is not our type of work. If you're making castings for the automotive industry, just remember 70% of vehicles are staying the same. It's only the drive chain that changes, so you can be involved in electric vehicles. We are having conversations with a local company last week discussing nuclear opportunities, and we've managed to get them both introductions to overseas opportunities and key people from the government's nuclear team to support them. Earlier this week, I was speaking to a forging company who are over 200 years old and shows the tradition of what we have in the Black Country. They asked, is it possible to get involved in the green economy? For me, this is brilliant, as whilst we have tradition and heritage, we cannot look back. We need to be positive, and we need to start looking what we can do with businesses over the next 20 to 30 years. Next, Alex, please. This basically just shows one of the countries that we actually export to, and it's probably advanced in compared to the UK, especially in the sector of clean growth. However, as a department, we can always assist in helping companies who want to export, and from the expertise and excellent local trade advisors, you can make the export journey seamless, and they'll make it as seamless as possible, and you will also get additional support from the Chamber Export Documents team. Last one, Alex. For me, these are two statements from the DIT that are critical and important. So with regards to actually promoting strategic investment into clean sectors, we need to make sure that we can expand this and they can be exported. But probably the biggest thing is actually champion growth from the UK supply chain. Basically, my role is to understand the local supply chain and find demand stimulation for your businesses. Let us help you champion your supply chain and look for potential funding options. The DIT doesn't charge you for the service, and to re-emphasize, it has people who have a wealth of business experience and are here to help you. So thank you very much for listening to me. Please feel free to contact me after the event if you need any further information. And I'm pleased to pass on to my colleague, Ben, who is the lead within the clean growth for the UK. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. So my name's Ben Roby, and I lead the clean growth team in DIT. I'm conscious that I've got the last slot of today. I've been hearing lots of people talking, so I'll try and keep it brief and hopefully it's of some interest. Alex, you wouldn't mind moving the slide along and to the next one as well, please. Thank you. So there's lots of words on these slides. They're meant more as a takeaway to refer to afterwards. So don't worry too much about reading everything. I'll try and cover it. So like Ian said, one of the questions that I guess I get asked all the time is, what is clean growth? What does it actually mean? And as Ian covered, it's a huge expanse of a definition or a concept. So rather than referring to any individual sector, it cuts across the entire economy. And as the UK is driving for net zero, that really means that the entire economy is looking to be decarbonised by 2050. The other slight complication to the definition as well is that it also can refer to, as opposed to just emissions, can refer to other angles of sustainability, So for instance, how does technologies impact on things like biodiversity or nature? And there's that whole side of the coin as well. But in terms of the UK, we talk about it so much, and politicians talk about it a lot, because the UK is a genuine leader in clean growth and in tackling climate change. So you can see on the table on this slide that since 1990, whilst the UK's GDP has grown by 75%, we've also managed to decrease emissions by 43%. That's largely to date been led by the power sector and decarbonising electricity through things like offshore wind and solar and all the rest of it. And now the government is looking to decarbonise the rest of the economy through the transport sector, business and industry, land use, and a whole load of kind of subsectors. Alex, would you mind moving on to the next slide, please? Thank you. So I guess the question is then, why does the government care so much about clean growth? Why is there such an interest on it? I think there's two reasons. One is because there's such a huge opportunity. So as highlighted by the 10-point plan, which Ian's already talked about, that's aiming to drive a further 250,000 jobs by 2030, as well as £12 billion of private investment, which the government is hoping to treble as well. And you can find stats from all across the agenda, which shows kind of the level of investment that's needed globally to kind of get to these ambitions, which presents real opportunities for trade and investment, which is why DIT is so interested in this. We've also, of course, got this year COP26 taking place in Glasgow in November. The COP26 being one of the biggest climate events since the Paris Agreement. That historic agreement was made in 2015. So it's a really exciting time in government and for the country to kind of further show that kind of climate leadership. Next slide, please. Brilliant. So for DIT, so Heather and Ian have touched on kind of the fact that they work in the Black Country, in the regions. My role is I work in kind of HQ in London. So we have a number of kind of sector teams there, and my kind of team looks to kind of drive clean growth across the department, look at how we can really help the kind of businesses kind of take these opportunities. So as I talked about, the opportunity is huge. There's loads of stats out there. One is that the low carbon economy could grow to up to £170 billion of exports by 2030. But the challenge that we have, because a lot of this is driven by government. So whilst opportunity is there, it's not guaranteed. And we can see an example of that by the offshore wind sector. So for the past decade or so, the UK government's been really driving offshore wind capacity. And we are now a global leader in offshore wind capacity. But what that hasn't led to is actual kind of opportunities for UK businesses and UK industry. So you can see on the slide, kind of 20% of CapEx goes to the UK. The ambition now is to increase that to 60%. So a key role for DIT is how can we make sure that when these decisions are being made, the centres to invest in new technologies, whether that's offshore wind, hydrogen, CCUS, or aerospace, or whatever it might be, and it's thinking about trade and investment right from the start, and thinking about how we can pull the UK supply chain and create UK green industry to capitalise on these opportunities, not just in the UK, but of course, countries around the world are committing to net zero and climate ambitions. So how can we capitalise on those opportunities? Next slide, please. So in terms of DIT, so this kind of, what we say is that the DIT is kind of across the core functions of DIT. It's kind of leading on clean growth. And so the three kind of parts is attracting foreign investment to build the UK's green industrial base. We also are looking to use the UK's independent trade policy. So that's things like the free trade agreements, which you'll see in the news. We've got new ones with Japan, New Zealand, Australia, the US. How can we use trade policy to reduce barriers to green trade in overseas markets? And then also, how can we promote the UK's green exports overseas? So that kind of support that Ian and Heather have been talking about so far. You can also see on this slide a table which I've tried to illustrate kind of how different kind of sectors fit within overall decarbonisation themes. So you can see transport, business industry, power, land use, buildings and places, sustainable consumption. It really does cut across everything. If you can, if you think that something doesn't relate to clean growth, I can tell you it definitely does. And then of course there's some cross-cutting sectors too, which are really important. So green finance, that's a real strength for the UK. So how can we finance green exports and opportunities? The City of London's really leading on that. We've got UK Export Finance, as Heather's already talked about, as well as those cross-cutting things of technology and innovation too. And in terms of how DIT looks to kind of support and frame its work, we look at this around kind of the invest, grow and export kind of model. So how can we get that investment to actually build a green industrial base, grow that by opening new markets, so that eventually we can export that down the line and really capitalize on those opportunities. And of course, exporting green or climate friendly goods doesn't only produce kind of prosperity, but it also helps other countries reach their climate ambitions too. So it's kind of a win-win goal from our perspective. Into the final slide, please, Alex. And I just wanted to end with a few kind of 3 examples of kind of case studies of businesses in the clean growth space. So just to kind of show the how widespread this is. So you've kind of got one there, which is a biodegradable coffee capsule company. You've been exporting to Australia. Company Solar Water exporting to Jordan and Saudi Arabia. And there's an example there of a company in the electric car battery supply chain exporting to the US. So there really is a huge kind of number of opportunities. And just to echo kind of Heather and Ian, hopefully you'll see some parallels with your own kind of work and businesses. And if so, please do reach out to us. We're here to kind of support you. That was a whistle-stop tour through clean growth and DIT, which I hope was helpful. Please, yeah, just to echo Ian and Heather, please do get in touch if we can be of any further assistance. Thank you very much.
Okay, no, thank you for that. That was great. Again, always interesting to hear from our colleagues at DIT. We're still a region that makes and a lot and delivers products and services around the world. So exporting and importing are always of keen interest to our members and our businesses regionally. So again, thank you for that. What we'll be doing as well is sending out some information to everybody that's attended today that will give you the chance to reach out to those that have spoken today, and in particular the DIT team. So that's it for the launch event. I just want to thank everybody that's spoken today. Again, my colleagues at the Chamber who have worked so hard to set up and create Black Country 2.0, and of course our business partners, EBC, Money Corp, FBC, Foresters and DIT. This is only the start of the journey, and you will be hearing much more about the campaign and its 3 phases of rebooting, rebuilding and rebounding over the coming months within Prosper Magazine, our social media channels, newsletters, and through themed events as well. So if you'd like to become a business partner or learn more about Black Country 2.0, you can email policy@blackcountrychamber.co.uk, or again, visit our dedicated website, blackcountry2.0.co.uk, and those details are in the chat as well. So once again, thank you to everybody for the support, and to thank all of you for attending today. Stay safe, and hopefully we'll get to see each other soon. Thank you.